It is always so great to be back in BC. I'm here in Kelowna for Emergency Preparedness Week, talking with firefighters and mayors about the challenges posed by the increased extreme weather events that come from climate change, whether it's wildfires or floods or heat waves or cold snaps that are having an impact on our growers. We know that we need to be more prepared, more coordinated, and focused on everything we're doing to keep families, individuals, communities, and our country safe. This morning I sat down with a number of families who lost their homes in the fires here last year, who are still deeply impacted by it, obviously. We talked about their situations. We talked about the loss of so much. But also the impact on their mental health, on their kids, on the amazing resilience they showed, but the need for continued support, the need for continued help as they rebuild their lives. And that's why I was so happy to be there at Mamas for Mamas, which is an incredible Kelowna organization that is helping people in extremely difficult times. One of the things we're working on as a government is bringing in better coordination across the board, from different provincial bodies to municipal bodies to different organizations, from the Red Cross and the Salvation Army to local organizations, making a huge impact either right in the moments of the emergency and the evacuations, or further down the line as people need more support to rebuild and recover. I also sat down with the mayors and the fire chiefs to talk about this upcoming season. We know from the forecasts that in Western and Northern Canada, because a dry winter, because of some of the challenges that are going to be faced, it is likely to be a very bad forest fire season. And we're drawing on the lessons that everyone learnt with such heroism last year to make sure we can do everything to minimize the impacts of the wildfires that will be coming this summer. Lots of work to do. We talked a lot about various initiatives and various things that are necessary, but the bottom line is our firefighters are extraordinary heroes who step up with courage and determination to support their neighbors, to save lives, and we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to be there for them. That's why the federal government has just doubled the volunteer firefighter tax credit. We're moving forward with $800,000 to further accelerate and complete the training up of 1,000 wildland fire fighters across the country. And we're putting $175 million into Indigenous communities where both emergency response and preparedness as well is going to be so important. I heard directly from the leaders behind me about the importance of continuing to invest in fire smart programs where homeowners and communities can do more to protect their homes, their communities from wildfires, and we're going to be continuing to do that. We're in a situation right now where people are worried. People are worried about what the summer might bring. People are worried what the future might hold for themselves, for next generations. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and climate change is a big part of it. We need to continue to step up in our fight against climate change so that we can minimize the extreme weather impacts, whether it's storms, floods, or wildfires, or any range of impacts that we're increasingly seeing, even as we invest in the community supports and the resilience that is going to mean we're able to hold off on those things. I was deeply humbled last year when Fire Chief Jason Brolin accompanied me to the United Nations in New York at the UN General Assembly to talk directly about the impacts of wildfires and of climate change on communities across Canada and by extension around the world. This is something that all of us need to take incredibly seriously and continue to look for everything we can do to keep communities safe where it's so beautiful and such an amazing places to live and be allowed to keep it that way for future generations as well. Je suis très touché d'être ici à Kelowna aujourd'hui pour parler de feux de forêt, de parler des changements météorologiques extrêmes, de l'impact des changements climatiques sur les communautés. J'ai parlé avec des familles qui ont perdu leur résidence, j'ai parlé avec les pompiers, j'ai parlé avec les leaders municipaux. On va continuer d'être là en tant que partenaire pour livrer la sécurité et les appuis nécessaires pour les années à venir. I want to highlight that Minister Sajjan has been a key part of the preparation for upcoming challenges. As Minister of Emergency Preparedness, he's working very, very hard to keep all the connections with these communities going and make sure that across the country we are keeping people safe, we're protecting communities, and we're reassuring people that our communities and our institutions are there to support them even through the worst times as we build a better future for all. So thank you very much for being here, and mostly thank all of you for your leadership and your heroism and everything you do, whether it's as municipal leaders or as firefighters.
We'll now begin a quick scrum. First question to Radio-Canada.
Radio-Canada, Lytton, Françoise Pelletier. Monsieur Trudeau, pourquoi avoir changé la position du Canada par rapport à l'adhésion de la Palestine à l'ONU et à qui souhaitez-vous envoyer ce message?
Tout d'abord, le Canada a une position depuis des décennies que la seule solution pour le Proche-Orient, c'est une solution à deux États. Malheureusement, on est en train de voir que des deux côtés, il y a un recul de cette approche vers une solution à deux États. Le gouvernement Netanyahu est en train de bloquer de façon inacceptable tout parcours vers une solution à deux États. Et Hamas, un organisme terroriste, continue de s'attaquer de façon violente à l'Israël et à mettre en vie la vie des civils. C'est pour ça que nous avons choisi de changer notre position sur la reconnaissance d'un État palestinien et on est en train de s'abstenir aux Nations unies. C'est une étape importante pour le Canada et on reconnaît que même si dans le passé on disait que la reconnaissance d'un État palestinien ne peut venir qu'à la fin d'un processus de deux États, on reconnaît que peut-être ça va devoir se faire à une autre étape dans ce processus. Et c'est un changement fondamental dans l'approche du Canada parce qu'on voit que nous devons bâtir une piste vers la solution aux deux États. En même temps, évidemment, on va être là pour investir dans l'aide humanitaire, pour protéger la vie des civils, pour travailler avec la communauté internationale, pour établir une piste, encore une fois, vers la paix et la stabilité dans la région. Voulez-vous en anglais? Oui. Okay. Canada has stood on a historic position for decades now that the only true solution for the Middle East is to have a two-state solution, a peaceful, secure Israel alongside a peaceful, secure Palestinian state. Unfortunately, over the past while, we've seen us move further away from that two-state solution. The Israeli government under Prime Minister Netanyahu has unacceptably closed the door on any path towards a two-state solution, and we disagree with that fundamentally. At the same time, Hamas continues to govern as a terrorist state, a terrorist organization in Gaza, continues to put civilian lives at danger, continues to refuse to recognize the state of Israel in ways that are also unacceptable. So Canada has decided to change our position from no at the UN to abstaining, to reflecting that our long-standing position that you could only recognize the state of Palestine as an outcome at the end of a process leading to a two-state solution, we now recognize that it may happen sooner than at the end of the process as a way of pushing towards that two-state solution. In the meantime, we will continue to be there calling for Hamas to lay down its arms and release all hostages, calling for Israel to ensure more humanitarian aid is flowing into Gaza to prevent the famine conditions that are quickly developing and the horrific loss of life. There is a lot of work that Canada is doing alongside partners in the region and around the world, and we will continue to stay focused on building a lasting and secure peace for all in the region.
Thank you. Next question.
Great, thanks so much for taking my question. Your government has now approved the recriminalization of public drug use in BC. What are the advantages of arresting public drug users?
A number of years ago, when British Columbia came to us asking for a pilot project to decriminalize certain drugs, to put the emphasis and the onus on a public health response to the toxic drug supply and opioid crisis, we worked with them. And we moved forward on this pilot project, and when they came back recently and said we need to make an adjustment to it, we granted them that adjustment in terms of public spaces. We're going to continue to take an approach grounded in public health, not criminal justice, for people living with addictions. We're going to continue to follow the science. We're going to continue to work around harm reduction and support for people who are struggling with addictions. We're looking at investing in more community supports and more wraparound services. Every step of the way, we will be guided by thoughtful, compassionate public health principles rather than ideology or criminalization of people who need support, need help, don't need jail sentences.
Next question.
Mr. Trudeau, Nick Johansson, Castanet News. About 3 years ago, you were here in BC and you promised to support the rebuild of Lytton. We're nearly 3 years past that point, and Lytton still remains very much as it was back in July 21. What's taking so long?
We are working with the community. We're also working, obviously, with the province on this. Rebuilding a town is no small task, and the support for individuals in getting through this difficult time is a very real priority for this government. We'll continue to work with them as we move forward, but it's yet another example of how much we need to do to prepare and to support people facing incredibly difficult situations.
Thank you. Last question.
Wildfire season has already begun in BC, but news is still banned on Facebook and Instagram. You said yourself this is likely going to be a bad season. Last week, our outlet, we interviewed a law professor, and he said, in his opinion, it would be likely Meta would work with Canada. We interviewed law professor Michael Geist last week, and he told us that, in his view, Meta would unblock news in Canada if the Online News Act were changed. Would your government compromise with Meta so that Canadians could once again post news on Facebook?
Meta, Facebook, has made the decision that they shouldn't have to compensate hardworking journalists telling local news stories. It is a decision by Meta that makes billions of dollars of profit all around the world, that they have no accountability to journalists that actually tell local stories, work hard to actually make sure people are properly informed, and instead make money off of sharing of information without recognizing the role they must play in a strong, independent media that is enhancing our democracies. This is a test moment where countries are going to have to realize that either we stand up for journalism and the profession, faced with internet giants that refuse to actually participate in it, or we bow down to them and allow them to make billions more dollars while degrading the safety, well-being, and communities that thrive in our democracy. I know there are a lot of people trying to figure out ways to keep everyone informed, particularly around emergency situations. We had this disagreement with Google, and Google stepped up with $100 million to make sure that local journalism was thriving. This is on Meta. This is Facebook deciding that they don't want to support the work of maintaining democracies. And either Canada stands strong to protect information and independent journalism, or else we see our democracies further diminished and further vulnerable to irresponsible web giants that are making billions off of people but taking no responsibility for the communities and the well-being of those communities that they exist and profit from everywhere around the world. We will continue to stand strong against the damaging impact of Meta, of Facebook, of Instagram, of all of them, until they step up and recognize that funding quality journalism in communities large and small, right across the country and around the world, is their responsibility, as it is all of ours.
Prime Minister, is Canada willing to recognize a Palestinian state even if Israel objects?
I just answered that question. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you.
Thank you.